Hi guys, I'm Shelby Wachter, and today I'm going to talk to you about the basics of raising show lambs and owning lambs and kind of just getting everyone ready for the county fair. First thing we're going to talk about is what to expect when you first get your lambs, lamb or lambs. They're going to be kind of skittish, more than likely. They're probably not going to be used to being around people a whole lot, especially being this close to people and being tied up. It's not a natural thing for them. So it's important when we first tie them up that we make it as positive of an experience as we can. So when you first tie your lambs up for the first few times until they're really comfortable on the halter, only do it for about 10 or 15 minute spurts. We don't want to go too long because it's going to get tiring for them, especially if it's hot out or things along those lines. You can definitely do it multiple times in a day. So if you want to do it in the morning after they've had their breakfast, tie up for 10 minutes or so, and then come out before or after they've had dinner, you can do another 10 or 15 minutes along with that. And also, when we're doing it, try and stay calm with them and talk to them. You can kind of squat down here with them, get at their level, talk to them, make sure that they know what your voice sounds like and start to recognize your voice and feel comfortable. Make sure we're handling them, definitely touch them as much as you can. Touch their face, touch their legs, because that's what's going to happen when you set them up. They're going to have their legs touched, and so you definitely want them to be used to that kind of stuff. And just get them to where they're really comfortable around you. They definitely can become like your pets the more time you spend around them, and the more time you spend with them, the better the experience is going to be. Another tip when you first get them, you can definitely, the more time you spend with them is better. So after school, you can come out here and just sit in a lawn chair and hang out with them. They don't have to be tied up, even if they're just walking around with a pen. It's really good for them to see you a lot and to know you and to just kind of recognize that you're somebody that they can trust. So you can definitely come out and do your homework, read a book, or just sit out and talk with them. They will eventually start to really connect with you if you do that more and more. And then, so when we're first putting halters on, we want to remember to have this piece here on the left side of their face, and it's coming out, okay? When we first start walking lambs, it's not going to be like it would be putting your dog on a leash and just taking off with them. It's not going to be a very easy process at first, but the big tip I can give you is just be patient with them. Remember that this is not a natural thing for them, so the more patient that you can be with it, the better off its experience is going to be. So when you first start to walk a lamb, just kind of keep it as loose as you can. So she's kind of doing this head thing right now, but keep it as loose as you can and give them as much space to kind of walk on their own. The more that they can walk on their own, the better they're going to feel about it. You can kind of give them a little bit of lead and stay behind them, kind of like that. She's never really been walked before, so this is about probably how they're going to react. They may just want to sit down. They may not want to walk. Biggest thing I can tell you, again, just be patient. Don't get upset, is because lambs are just like any other animal. They feed off of your energy, so if you get upset, then they're just going to continue to get upset, and they're not going to want to work for you. But yeah, being patient with them, going slow. Eventually, they'll figure it out. And then eventually you'll get there. It's only going to take time. So I'm going to let these guys go. I'm going to show you kind of a little tip on how to get them go, let them go, and then we're going to go ahead and we'll talk about the rest of care for your lambs. All right, so when you're letting them loose, just kind of stand with them, talk to them a little bit. Don't just rip the halter off and let them run. Just kind of give it a minute, talk to them, kind of rub them a little bit, and then slowly take their halter off. And you can kind of set it down and just kind of again, talk to them like this without their halter on, and kind of let them maybe notice when the halter's gone, and then eventually they'll walk away. Here I only had one hand and I kind of just let her go on her own. Not making it an aggressive thing where you just rip the halter off. Again, it's just trying the best to keep a positive experience and keep them comfortable and cool and relaxed. So I'm going to do the same thing with this guy. He's a little bit more stubborn than the ewe, so I'm just going to kind of stand here with them, do the same thing. Take the halter off, talk to him, rub him, and let him figure out on his own. And here, if they're sitting next to me, I'm not going to make any set of movements. I'm going to kind of let them go on their own before I get up. Again, it's just trying to keep them in as positive experience as they can. So then I'm gonna let their friends back in with them. And then, or whichever way they wanna go. So sheep are herd animals, they like to be together, so they're definitely gonna wanna stay in groups. And the more you can remember that, the easier it's gonna be on you. All right, now we're gonna go over and we're gonna talk about equipment, food, water, shelter, and all those other things you're gonna know. When you're moving around your sheep in the pen, try it when you're catching them, obviously then you would want to corner them, but in another situation to keep them like happy and keep them from like not running into like boards and things along those lines, make sure they have like what I would call an escape route. So if they're on this side, then walk on this side of the pen and allow them to have room to go where they want to go. Okay. So then, when you're starting your sheep project, there's some basic pieces of equipment that you're going to want to have. Here, I'll probably see a little better. First things first, you're going to want to have shampoo. This is Clear Choice shampoo from Sullivan Supply. This is not a requirement to have. You can definitely just use Dawn dish soap. That works just the same. As long as it's safe for humans, it's going to be safe on them as well. It doesn't need to be anything too fancy. Just a basic shampoo will work just great. These two brushes are also awesome pieces to have for equipment. This brush is, you can get it from Sullivan Supply. It's kind of a harsher brush. It's a little bit more aggressive, so I would only use this on the legs. Don't use it on their body or their skin, but it's really good for getting their legs all fluffy and as well as smoothed out in the way we want them to look. And then this brush is also, again, from Sullivan Supply. It's more like a human hair brush because it has these little like knobs or things on the ends that keep it from being as aggressive. And so, but this is one I would use if their legs are really tangly or if it's some of the first times that you're brushing out their legs. This one's would be a good one to use. But honestly, either one would be something you could use all year round. It would be perfect for your project. And then, of course, you're definitely, the biggest must-have is a halter, a good halter that you are comfortable with and know how to work. When we have had lambs broke and they've been used to being tied up and whatnot, we like to use these halters because we can just kind of wrap them around and hook them on a chain. But when we're first tying up lambs, we prefer to use these ones, these rope halters that don't have chains at the end, because then we can tie them up however we need to. When you're first tying your lambs up, you want to make sure that you tie them nice and loose. That way that they don't jump over anything. You're going to find out your lambs are really athletic and actually can jump really high. So when you're tying them on like a panel, you make sure that you would loop it underneath low and then tie them up so that way that their head isn't too high so they're trying to jump over the panel. But when we're first tying them up in general, make sure you're tying them kind of loosely so that way if they were to fall over, that they don't hurt themselves. And if they do fall over, it's not a big deal. We just pick them right back up and tie them up again, and it'll be just fine. And then a few other pieces of equipment that are definitely not necessary, but are really good for making your life a little bit easier and just makes everything, the whole process kind of easier. This is a show stand. This is probably one of the more expensive pieces of equipment that comes along with showing lambs. Again, this is not something that you're going to have to need to function, but I would say if you have access to one, or at least one you can borrow from a friend, it makes life a little bit easier when we're clipping lambs or getting them ready and blowing them off or and whatnot, getting ready for show. There's a lot of different types of show stands and a lot of different ways you could get a lamb on a stand. For more, like if you have more questions along those lines, I'm going to leave my information at the end of this video, and you can always talk to your extension agent or anybody that you know in the sheep industry for more specific questions along those lines. But this show stand is from Sullivan Supply. If you're looking for one, there's not only can you get them new from Sullivan Supply, but you can always try and find used ones on like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, or just asking around. People are always trying to get rid of some sometimes when they get a new one or if they're out of the industry. And then the last piece of equipment, that this is probably, again, one of the more expensive pieces of equipment that you would buy with this project, is a blower. Again, this is not a necessary piece of equipment, but it does just make it easier when we're dealing with getting a lamb ready for show. This is something that I would use after I've washed the lambs off. When they have thick wool, and even when they don't have thick wool, it just makes it easier to get them dry and get them to where I want. And when I'm blowing out legs and whatnot. This one is from Sullivan Supply. As you can see, it's a little old. It needs to be cleaned off, but yeah, I got it from Sullivan Supply. You could, again, it's the same kind of situation with the show stands. You could definitely probably try and find them used. Again, Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or things along those lines. Also, definitely call and talk to Sullivan Supply, because I know sometimes they have ones that they call like dented, or sometimes they have used ones. Because they are a company that goes on the road a lot. Like if a show stand was to fall off a trailer and be dented, then it cannot be sold for full price as like a brand new one, but they may be able to give you a discounted price on it, or anything along those lines. And again, if you don't want to get one on your own, definitely you can always try and borrow one from a friend, or find somebody at the county fair to be willing to allow you to use one on show day to make your life a little bit easier. But then definitely some necessary things we're going to talk about are feed and water. What is important to remember when watering your lambs is they're going to need fresh water morning and night, especially in the heat of the summer, because they're not sitting in the cool air conditioning like we get to all day. We have to do everything we can to make sure that they are cool and comfortable in the heat of the summer. And things that we can do to make them as comfortable as we possibly can are cool, fresh, clean water morning and night. And if you have the ability to, in those really hot days, if you can come out around lunchtime or sooner than dinner time to give them a little extra fresh water, or to change out their water, that's always helpful. Again, I know some people aren't home every day during the day, but if you are able to, it's definitely something that's a little bit helpful for the lambs. Again, along with that, keeping them cool, depending on the facilities that you're in. If you're in a facility like this where it's closed in, we have fans set up around our building that we have on during the day and just heat of the day to help keep air moving, as well as we have windows and doors that we'll have open to allow air movement to go through. And if you're in like a three-sided building that you have them in, that's always awesome too, because it's nice and open, lets air in, and you can also make sure if you can have shade from them, whether it's from a lean-to or from a tree, anywhere that they can get out of direct sunlight is always going to be helpful in keeping your lambs cool in the heat of the summer. Then, when it comes to feed, it's really, really important to remember that we can't just feed lambs whole corn. Because whole corn helps to convert fat really easily, it makes them put on weight super easily. And if you just feed them whole corn all the time, you're going to end up with a lamb that's going to be way over-conditioned by the time county fair rolls around. But, lucky for you guys, in this area of Nebraska, we have a ton of awesome places you can get great show feed of all different kinds. There's Purina, Showtech, Kent Show Feeds, and plenty of other ones along those lines. The biggest tip I can tell you is trying to have, this is like what's called a textured feed. So it's got all kinds of different things in it, different pellets, and corn and oats and things along those lines. Definitely at the very least I would want to have a pelleted feed, so you can get feed that's just these pellets. A textured feed is ideal if you can be able to get your hands on it. Again, there's all kinds of awesome brands. You can definitely talk to your feed distributor or your feed store and ask them questions about it. Hopefully somebody can answer your questions. Otherwise, definitely contact Cole at your extension agency, or feel free to contact me with any more questions about what you want to feed your lamb specifically. Again, how much to feed can get kind of tricky. It all depends on the lamb and what kind of condition they're in. So that's definitely something that you could ask any of those people I listed previously about what to. And oftentimes in feed bags they have in the back, they'll have a guideline of kind of a weight range and what you should be feeding the lamb. I would definitely, if we're going to give a super general recommendation, I would say probably about 1 pound to 2 pounds of feed a day. They're going to convert about half of that into weight, meaning they'd be gaining about 1/2 pound roughly per day, which is definitely not a bad rate of gain. Again, that also varies on the lamb. Some lambs are pickier eaters than others, and some lambs are going to eat everything that gets put in front of them. So again, those are more specific questions you would want to ask once you get your lamb. Another really important thing to remember when we're feeding lambs is the roughage, because they don't have some of the things that we have, microbes and microorganisms and things in their stomach that are breaking down their food like we do. They need to have roughage in there that keeps their stomach working properly and in order. And so we would have this grass hay that we would feed them. A good rule of thumb is about a handful per lamb, per morning and night, roughly. I would not recommend too much more than this, because then you're gonna get something that we kind of call, at least around our house, we call it hay belly, which just means that they're gonna look kind of bloated and not quite look what they really truly are in their own size. So they definitely don't need access to hay all day long. Again, this kind of depends per lamb and how they react to it. Every lamb system is different, and some lambs are gonna react differently to large amounts of hay and smaller amounts of hay. But a good rule of thumb is about a handful per lamb, morning and night. The last kind of couple things I want to talk about, first off, so something to be aware of when we're getting into the show lamb industry, or just the lamb industry in general. A common disease that you're going to run into is, well, it's not really a disease, it's a fungus, and it's called ringworm, and it's can vary anywhere from like a pea-sized dot to like the size of a cutie orange, fruit. But anyway, it's a red, usually it's red or pinkish in color, and it's going to usually have raised sides on it, and like a ring. And that is, it's not something that's super harmful, but it is, it's important to remember that it is contagious to humans. So if you touch it with your open wounds and like that, you're going to get ringworm as well. And it's just something that, like, it's not going to hurt your lamb, but you can't take it to county fair or exhibit it anywhere. If it does have those, no show allows you to take a lamb in that has fungus that's live and has not been treated. It's super easy to treat. You just have to be able to identify it early on. If you see anything that you suspect at all, definitely call your extension agent or talk to your vet or anyone you know that knows sheep. The sooner you can jump on it and treat it, the better off you're going to be, because it's going to be something that you can hopefully get rid of pretty quick. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about show prep, getting ready for the fair and actually what you're going to be doing with your lamb. So you're going to have to shear the lamb off, and so you would get clippers for that. And I will go ahead and get out my clippers and show you guys what we would use. So you don't have to necessarily go out and buy a pair of clippers. You definitely can find someone that hopefully will let you borrow them. Again, I would talk to your extension agent if you don't want to go out and buy a pair, because depending on what you get, they can be a little bit pricey. But again, it's the same kind of thing as the blower and the stand. You can definitely try and find used ones per Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, and things along those lines, talking to people within your county. And anyway, so you're going to definitely need to have access to a pair of clippers to get ready for your county fair. These clippers are Premier ones, and the blade that we have on them, I believe, is the fine blade. I recommend using either fine or mediums. I would not recommend surgicals. Those ones can cut really close, and if you're not experienced in dealing with them, it can be kind of a little bit of a mess. Those words, surgical, medium, and fine, all mean that the size of the tooth and the length of the blade and how it's going to cut on the wool. So with that being said, definitely just try your best to get access to a pair of clippers, because you will need one in getting ready for fair. You're going to need to have your lamb clipped off before you take it to the fairgrounds. And just a couple rules of thumb when clipping a lamb off: you're going to want to clip their whole body, off, and clip their legs down to like their knee, what we would call like our knee on a human. So you want to clip it all the way down there, and don't clip any farther, because we want to keep that wool and hair there to make them look as big boned as we can. And then you want to clip their necks and clip up their heads as much as you can, and kind of get the sides of their faces, anywhere that they have those woolly faces, try and get those off as best as you possibly can. And if you have any questions, or if you would like any help, definitely get a hold of your extension agency. They can hopefully kind of pair you up with somebody in your county that can help you, or at least point you into more of the direction how to do that. And one of the last pieces of equipment that is you might want to use at the fair, if you have access to them, when you get to the fair and after you've got the lamb all clipped off and washed and ready for the show, you can put a blanket on them. This is definitely not necessary, but it's nice to help keep them clean. The blankets, you can look for them on Sullivan Supply, Weaver Livestock, any show supplies or any livestock supply place or website. And again, those are also some things that you can potentially find used on Craigslist or on things like Facebook Marketplace and whatnot. So overall, I really hope that you got some important information from this. Just remember, when you're getting your lambs ready for the show, remember that we're not going to wash them every day because they have things in their wool that help protect them from diseases and whatnot, and we don't wash them every day like cattle necessarily do. Only wash them when you're getting them ready for a show and when you're getting ready to clip them off. Just remember patience overall with your lambs, because a lot of things that we're doing when getting a show lamb ready is not natural, but it's something that we definitely can over time can make it seem really natural to them. And just spend as much time as you can with your lambs, bonding and being out in the barn with them. The more you're out in the barn with them and they hear your voice and they're around you, the more comfortable they're going to be with you, and the easier your experience in the show ring and outside of the show ring is going to be. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope you got some information that's helpful from this. I really hope that you enjoy your adventure into the sheep and show lamb project. I know that showing lambs is a very special place in my heart. I've been doing it for a long time now, and I really hope that you have a great experience with your sheep project. I will give Cole my information, and I will leave the information below in the video, my email, if you want to get a hold of me with any further questions. Otherwise, always, you can definitely ask your extension agent or anyone that you know in the sheep industry any questions that you have. People are always usually very helpful about sharing as much information as they can. Thanks, guys.